Shows are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Welcome to the Edventures in Tech podcast, talking the latest tips and trends in educational technology to innovate and engage your students. Here are your hosts, Andrew and Dan.
Back and better than ever. This is episode 55 of the Adventures in Tech podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Andrew.
And I'm Dan.
And we are excited you've joined us for Venture live at NYSCATE 2024. New venture, new venue. We are here at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino. The exhibit hall is abuzz with a lot of people. It's actually day one. A lot of things are going on with all the sessions that have been happening so far. A lot of learning going on, and definitely interested to see. It's a new layout, a new spread, so to speak. We're kind of navigating our way, let's be honest. That's what it comes down to. Definitely getting our feet wet with the new layout. But we're excited. It's a lot of fun here, always at NYSCATE, a lot of learning going on. And we'll have our first reflections on the actual conference in a future episode. But we are first blessed with a good friend, the courtesy of our friends at Bloom. Big fans of Bloom here for all of your ed tech solutions. You can definitely reach out to the representatives of Bloom. You can contact us. We can put you in contact with someone as well. But we have Jason here from Newline. And we are very fortunate. We have a lot of Newline boards. So Jason, welcome to the show.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having us.
So let's talk, Jason, is this your first NYSCATE?
No, I'm a NYSCATE veteran.
You are a vet? I love it. All right, so what are your first thoughts when we talk, when it was in Rochester versus, here at Turning Stone?
Well, Rochester just feels historical for us, right? Because that's where we've been for so many years.
Many.
A change of scenery is good, and Turning Stone's been a great venue so far, so we're excited for the next couple days.
Yeah, it's going to be a great experience for everybody overall. The vibe is just much positive here this year.
Sure.
And I do think that people have embraced it, like you said, and all of us veterans, less of a drive, right? That's always a key component.
Not a bad thing. Hopefully
that's a perk.
The snow stays away, that'll be great.
That is true. All right, so let's talk Newline display technology. I know we have a lot about it, but let's talk just about your boards in general as people are starting to, be curious as far as, okay, what kind of interactive displays, because they're all out there, let's talk about Newline and the Q series specifically, because that's what you guys are really embracing now, and what benefits does it provide for districts and its users?
Yeah, I think we've seen a big shift in K-12 over the years, right? So I've been in the interactive space for nearly 20 years. And what we're seeing now is teachers have migrated to a myriad of different things that they're using to deliver lessons to their students, right? So what Q Pro really delivers on is being able to be that panel that integrates into a teacher's existing environment, right? So we see a proliferation of Google throughout schools right now. So Q Pro is a Android 13 Google certified panel. Right, so you have a sense of familiarness for teachers with that panel when they see that native Google environment.
Right.
Integrates into their Google environment, and is really something that we are able to see better adoption among teachers, not just your tech super users, right? We love to talk about those guys. They're super important, but we want to make sure that the product is adopted across the entire teacher base.
And how do you think people get into that adoption mode? Because there's so many choices out there, and unfortunately schools really have budget constraints.
They do.
So how do we really make sure that we kind of get that group to buy in?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we do really well, and I think what a lot of folks overlook when they're looking at interactive technology, is looking at that manufacturer as a true partner.
Right.
And what Newline does a great job of is we've focused on creating that long-term relationship, and some of the ways we do that is through our tech support, right, where you get to know your tech support person. It's not just a name that or a number that you're calling into. It's a name. And then also we've invested a lot into our training team. So we offer complimentary group training, virtual and in person, for the life of the product, right? So we're able to focus specifically on adoption in small groups. Not necessarily an entire group where you're really struggling to hit the nail on the head for that set of teachers that you have, right? We can focus on our AP science teachers.
Yeah.
Right? How do we integrate this into the curriculum that you guys have already invested money into? Or let's take a look at it from a technology adoption perspective, right? Just like students in a classroom, teachers adopt technology at different rates. So let's work with teachers where they are to get them up that next rung on the ladder, so to speak.
I like that.
I like that. And I can definitely vouch for the customer service aspect of the company. I mean, we've invested in a lot of Newline boards, and the support there has been fantastic for us, especially in just maintaining or just learning new features and how to manage. But you're talking a lot about how your training focuses and how you can really help individual teachers where they're at. So if we can just look at your board itself, I mean, for that first-time teacher, that board's put in the room, can you tell us a little bit about just what that board has in itself, in its native operating system to help a teacher, and then how it can be extended out for further use?
Yeah, absolutely. So depending where you are in that technology spectrum of adoption, right? If you're a more advanced technology user, you're going to see the panel in the classroom and look at that as, I have a whole nother device in my classroom.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. Android 13, EDLA certified. You essentially have a Chrome OS in your environment that you can run your native Google applications. You can run anything that is accessible via web through the built-in Chrome browser, right? The Android 13 certification also gives those applications the ability to be continually updated on the go. And really allows them to integrate into that environment. In addition to that, it's about taking these lessons that teachers have created and adding simple layers on top of it, right? So a small feature built into one of our panels is something called Newline Classroom Tools, right? So we can black out an entire screen, draw a circle over a specific piece of content that a teacher might want to emphasize for their students, and zero in that focus on that, right? Another thing we can do is, no matter where a teacher might have that lesson stored, no matter what might be on the screen, we have the ability to take that and put it into a whiteboard, right? And we're talking about two simple touches rather, right? Because we're talking touch panels here. And put that into a whiteboard, and then not only have that in there to expand upon with your students, collaborate, and all of that stuff, but you also have the ability to create a digital deliverable, right? So for our middle school, high school students, teachers love the ability to use that whiteboard as a collection point of all of the interactive pieces. Right? So we get everything in there, and then we can very easily save that to our Google Drive, save that to our Google Classroom, or what I think is most important is get that information into our students' hands immediately. We put a little QR code on that screen. Students with their Chromebooks, iPads, anything with a camera, they're going to grab that and have immediate access to all of the work that we just did in the classroom.
Simplicity at its finest right there, with easy accessibility. I do like how seamless it will go to your drive, because otherwise, if we don't label our files, we know they become cluttered. I'm guilty of this. It's a mess, right?
Sure.
Google Classroom or whatever your LMS is, the distribution, that is a key component as well. And like you said, depending upon what devices you have with a camera, you talk about making sure it's easily accessible very quickly with, a student device. The camera is definitely an option. I'm sold.
I
No, I'm
am.
just kidding.
Well, I think you're underselling, not that you're selling very well, but underselling just the functionality of the board itself. So I know a lot of experience I have. What I really like about the Newline boards is you don't have to leave it. Once your teacher is up there moving around the classroom or going wherever, it has the full functionality, and that whiteboard in there and the tools that you can put in, the different math tools, the different things, and all the features.
The built-in manipulatives that you're talking
The built-in
about.
manipulatives really make it a great tool in the classroom.
Well, and then you have to that end as well, you have the casting capabilities as well, which is not device or OS agnostic, right? It is device agnostic. So whether you're a Mac, whether you're Windows, whether you're a Chromebook, students, teachers, all of the folks in the classroom have the ability to share content and engage in another way.
I'll tell you, that was one thing that in our district for years, remember we were looking for a solution to that, and the casting in the Newline is seamless, especially with the Display Note app for the different devices. I think that's a really nice feature that it has.
Can we just talk, some classroom spaces are different than others, right? And so how do we, or how does Newline, I should say, really make sure that they're accessible for all the different spaces size-wise?
Absolutely. So we recognize that no classroom is the same,
right?
And add on the layers of how that teacher wants that classroom layout to be. You need to be flexible, right? So from a panel perspective, we offer anywhere from 55 to 98-inch panels, right? So from a size perspective, we'll be able to fit that environment. And then a big emphasis for Newline, again, with fitting into existing environments, is that non-proprietary piece, right? So we use a standard VESA mount. So we include a free wall mount that goes out with every panel, but we also have the capabilities to add in a mobile stand, right? And we can use our mobile stand. We can use something like a balance box that offers height adjustment. We can be flexible to work with other things that are out there, right? One of the things I run into sometimes is existing whiteboard space or installations that have to go over whiteboards from an IT perspective and from an installation perspective. So being able to integrate with things that exist for the classroom is a huge benefit there.
I like it. Thank you. That's great. All right, so we're talking display technology. We know there's a lot. We've kind of talked about what separates Newline from the market as a whole. And I know I can speak just from personal use with the overlay features. You know, it's a big shift with how simplistic it is to use between the pen tool, the lasso tool, the highlight tool. Is there any tricks or tips that you would offer people when it comes to the whiteboard and the annotate features?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, kind of going back to the roots of what Newline stands for, that non-proprietary piece, right? Our pen, it's a simple piece of plastic and it's got a thin tip on it.
Yep.
Right? So one of the things that teachers run into quite a bit is understanding the use of using the tip of the pen as a pen.
Yep.
Right? And being able to use our finger as a highlighter, being able to use our finger as a sizing tool to zoom in, pinch, zoom, pinch, zoom out, all of those fun things. So my advice for tips and tricks, spend some time. You can't break the thing.
Yeah.
Right? So go out there, put it through its paces, and then come back to us and let us know where you're struggling with, and take advantage of that training so we can make sure that we're zeroing in on how to use our panel directly in your environment.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. There's no battery in the pen, right?
It's just a silly piece of plastic.
And that was the funny part that I've seen many people trying to replace the battery.
Yes.
Which is, it doesn't exist, which is nice because a lot of the former tools would have some kind of battery component to a degree. The other thing is, I do like how, like you said, it's got the fine point, and then on the other end is the thicker point, which automatically knows, like the intuition of the board knows to switch from pen to highlighter. Okay, one more quick question. And you may not have an answer or may not be able to give an answer. Is there any new tools in the whiteboard coming out on the new lines specifically that have not yet been released?
Oh boy,
that we may get a
here?
sneak peek about.
Well, I'll give you a couple of classroom related, and then I'll give you an IT piece.
All right, I love it.
Right, so from a classroom perspective, Newline Cast is consistently being updated.
Okay.
Right, so casting is now able to offer unlimited connections, so an entire classroom can join that session, and then also moving to being able to display 9 displays at one given time in a casting session.
All right.
So that's new, that's cool. The whiteboard continually receiving updates. I can't give you too much detail.
I tried.
But there's some additional manipulatives.
Okay.
I talked about Newline Classroom tools being able to zero in on a specific part of the screen and black out the rest.
Yep.
You're going to see some advancements there as well.
I love it.
I'm excited.
That's as simple as just an over-the-air software update?
Exactly.
Okay.
Over-the-air software update. That's on the classroom side. I think what's really exciting from an IT perspective, from the technology side of the house, is something called Newline Secure. So that's a new feature that we're throwing out there. It's a CAP integration, right? So it's going to integrate into existing emergency alert systems, right? Single wire, things like that, to allow for kind of that next generation of disseminating this emergency information out to your environment. Not only devices from a computer perspective, but now we can integrate those panels into that as well. So we think that's really important in today's current environment in K-12 to make sure we're doing our part to make sure that important information that needs to be broadcast out like that can get out to the classrooms.
Now, is that fully rolled out now? If the districts have subscribed to it and everything like that, is that CAP process already out?
Yeah, so we just launched it about a week ago.
Oh,
it's called Newline Secure. So you guys this podcast is going to be the first big thing that
that's right. You heard it here first.
Right. So our millions of users, or listeners, I should say, are going to millions of users from our side as well.
Absolutely.
But millions of your listeners are going to get that, and hopefully we'll see some benefit and positive feedback from your audience.
Is there? I'm looking at Newline Secure, right? So, is there are there templates for like administration? Like I'm looking at the evacuate, listen for instructions, the red and black, like something that's like a warning symbol, right? Or signal, I should say. Is that like built in, or do the administrators and everything have to actually build those templates out to be sent.
Yep, so there's some templates available. It's a management console that allows you to integrate those into your various different types of emergency announcements that you might have. So should be pretty seamless for folks. The big piece is building out that integration. And one of the things that has helped us, if I can kind of brag a little bit about Newline, is being #1 in market share in the US, like we have been here for about a year now, has given us the ability to go out to these companies and get our information, get their information, create those partnerships so that we can offer these value adds to our customers.
I love it. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I was going to say, I think you said something earlier in the podcast about, display technology and its flexibility, but we're looking now at your flexibility and adaptation to meet more needs than just those interactive displays.
Absolutely.
So that's great with the Secure. I want to switch gears a little bit because I know you've been around NYSCATE for the last 2 years, probably lots of conferences, and everything is AI, and I happen to see that there's a new partnership being made with a certain AI feature, and I was wondering if you'd like to talk about that.
You're talking about the wizard, Merlyn.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you're in tune with education, you've been around at NYSCATE for a few years like us, you have probably run into Merlyn, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of the preemptive pioneers in K-12 specific purpose-built AI. So they've been around for a while. They've had their hardware out there. Merlyn Origin is kind of their original product. And what we've been able to do in a short time with them that no one else has been able to do, largely because Newline is the only company out there that manufactures their own interactive flat panel, right? So that gives us a lot of benefit to be able to do things like Newline Secure, but specifically to Merlyn, we've got a third-party partner out there that is doing groundbreaking things in the AI space. And we've been able to partner with them and very quickly get that integration into our panel so we can take advantage of Merlyn's technology in conjunction with our interactive flat panel, right? So we can take a look at things like using the Merlyn remote to not only do that generative K-12 AI so we can keep conversations going in the classroom, but also to voice control your panel. So we talked a bit earlier about having that panel being able to have teachers escape their laptop or their classroom computer.
Yep.
Merlyn now allows us to escape the front of the classroom, right? We can be completely untethered through our classroom using our remote, changing the pen colors with this, looking up information for questions, right? Because we know teachers, they've got a hard job, right? And inevitably you're going to have a student that asks you a question and you don't know the answer to it. So what do? Right? We don't want to pause the conversation. We don't want to stop the conversation. We want to keep that thought process going with our students. So with Merlyn built into our panel, we can ask Merlyn, hey Merlyn, who is Paul Revere? Right? And Merlyn's going to give us an answer. Right? So we're going to keep that conversation going, and it's really groundbreaking stuff in the K-12 space, and we're happy to be able to be the first and only panel company that integrates them currently.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, we talk about how great it was to become untethered with your device.
Right.
Having this, you're completely untethered. I mean, I've seen, for those of the not familiar with Merlyn and the products, I definitely recommend people going in and checking out all that has to offer because it really is mind-blowing what that you can integrate into that panel now.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm just looking at like the rapid reference sheet I got here, a magnet I should say. The remote pretty much then will replace the Newline remote for the board.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm seeing just the differences. I mean, I understand the voice activation component and everything like that. I do like how the voice is there and how you can automatically take screenshots, and teachers love the freeze and unfreeze screen feature more than anything. They really do. That is something that they're absolutely going to love. When it talks about the chat, right? Start chat, open chat, close or launch chat. Can you elaborate on what the chat feature is?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is that K-12 specific generative AI.
Okay.
Right? So that is, if you know some history on Merlyn, right? You've got a lot of former IBM Watson folks who have started that company, and they had this idea to build AI purpose-built for K-12, right? So when you're talking to it, it is filtered from a K-12 perspective. So when you ask it things that you should not, you're going to get a response that's not K-12 appropriate. But what that chat feature really does is, again, it's AI, you can use it in the background, right? You can use it for administrative things, but we're really talking about classroom use. right? And for classroom use, we can leverage AI to keep conversation going. Keep those thinking minds of the students who are engaged in that conversation going. We don't want to have any lull in that classroom time, and that chatbot allows us to continue that conversation.
I like it. Another question I had is, so you could search specific websites.
Sure.
Do you say every website, or is Merlyn smart enough, which I'm sure it is, because Merlyn Mind is, whether it's Google for images, Wikipedia, YouTube, but it could be anything on the web, right?
Yeah, so you can have an open a web search if you would like to. What's really cool is the platform that Merlyn has built.
Yeah.
So what Merlyn gives you the ability to do is to simplify it even more than that. Right, so you can go into the Merlyn platform and you can create custom commands. Right, so I did a conference actually. Are you guys familiar with Brainstorm? Right, so I was at Brainstorm last week with Merlyn, and what they had created was something simple like you have a student who has a birthday. Right, so they created a command that is a link to a YouTube video that sings happy birthday. Right, and all you do is say, hey Merlyn, it's my birthday. Right, and Merlyn opens up that YouTube happy birthday. Now it can be more fun than that as well, right? So they had one that was created to link to a specific aquarium with a 360 live feed of sea turtles, right? So you can say, hey Merlyn, show me my sea turtles, right? So you can create these custom ones that are very specific and purpose-built to that teacher. And I think that stuff is just incredibly useful.
That is, and as a teacher, that is very exciting to see these capabilities, to be able to be active in your classroom, be mobile, pulling kids for small groups, talking to them, and then still being able to support everything in the classroom through the interactive display, through Merlyn, and providing all these differentiated resources for students on the fly. I mean, we're always looking as teachers, how can we have multiple means of representation of content?
Yep.
And as we're going teaching through a moment, we have that teachable moment there, and we can then access it through some AI integration and take advantage of what's there put on the plate in front of us.
100%. I mean, I think if you take a step back, one of the best pieces of feedback that I've ever received from a school, I had a technology director who was a former teacher, former principal, and I'll be honest, we got into the game kind of late with them. They had evaluated every piece of interactive technology that was out there. We were able to get in front of her, and she said, man, you've really thrown my whole world into a loop. I feel like I have to do this again. And what she said to me was, it really resonated and it has stuck with me. She said, as a former teacher, what I love about Newline is I don't have to think about the technology. I can focus on delivering my lesson.
That's key.
That is.
And that was monumental for me, and I think with the integration, we didn't have the Merlyn integration at that time, but with the Merlyn integration and some of the stuff you were talking about there, Dan, is that just takes it to another level. Not only do we not have to think about the technology, now we can really focus on our students,
right,
and not think too much about the content either, and focus on the conversation that's happening and really that whole amazing thing that happens from a learning process in a classroom.
Oh, absolutely, and I can't wait to get to explore this if I ever have the opportunity. But you know, you really talk about what students need in the classroom, and as you're working with students, we really should be able to set the scene for them in the classroom where they're doing all those higher level thinking in the classroom, the teacher providing supports, providing scaffolds, and then that's really difficult for a teacher if they're tied somewhere, 100%. If they have a device where there's not much versatility for them in the moment. So looking at the solutions that Newline is coming up with, where do you see this going? How do you see Newline continuing to support the space within the classroom?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you know, we don't know, right? We don't know where education technology is going to go, where it's going to go, I should say. And I think where Newline is so well positioned is being very focused on K-12 and focused on creating a product that adapts to whatever might happen in a classroom.
That's
right?
key.
And that's why we're so focused on creating that product that is, it's drilled into our heads at Newline, right? It is non-proprietary. That's kind of what Newline says, right? I have to say that. I'm going to be honest, that's what I have to say. What I love to say to my clients that I work with is it's future-proofing.
That's
right?
it.
And our president, he says it's just an interactive display. It should be treated as an interactive display. It shouldn't impact decisions that schools are making from a curriculum perspective, a device perspective, a hardware technology perspective, software in their classroom. Right? It should be able to integrate to whatever you guys decide makes sense, and we're going to adapt to whatever makes sense in a K-12 classroom as well.
That's fantastic. And I think Andrew and I can both relate to see how that board has opened up options for our teachers, being able to, as it's agnostic, being able to design lessons in a variety of formats and be able to interact with it on the board. I mean, we've gone through our share over the years that we've been through of different interactive displays or panels, and sometimes it's tough to get past a certain, you get stuck in somewhere, and then when you have to adapt and change, you're kind of handcuffed. So 100%. It's exciting that Newline offers that agnostic platform.
Yeah, and that's our plan for the future. It's gotten us to where we are, and we're excited for what the future holds as well.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate in some sense.
Yeah.
A not curriculum leader, whatever, some school district leader likes what they've heard, and they have or they don't have an interactive display from Newline. They may have some older models, like first gen, let's say, or the Q Pros, right? That's what's the hot item. Merlyn will interact with just the Q series. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So just the Q series, and if they want to get Merlyn engrossed in their boards, how do they go about doing that?
So I want to make sure I understand the question correctly. So for their existing environment, so their existing
Q series users, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So Merlyn is a subscription.
Okay.
Right? And there's an application, Merlyn Display, installs on those panels. It's a pretty seamless integration process.
All right, so it's easy. Yeah. And that's why the support's there to help us out. I love it, right? Because Merlyn interacts so well with the Newline boards, are the founders of Merlyn, like you said, they were from Watson and IBM and everything, how are they, we don't know where education's going. We know that. We just talked about that. But the capabilities to address the emerging technology needs, of Merlyn and educators in general, how do they kind of foresee it as part of your partnership with Merlyn? How do they see education going? What are their thoughts? I'm sure they've had conversations with you guys of, this is Merlyn, this is how it's going to work with our Q Pros, right? And say, okay, well, what are you guys going to do to make sure it's future-proof with Merlyn? I mean, I think it should be pretty seamless, but I wanted to kind of, ask that question as well.
Yeah, I mean, the direct partnership that we have, the manufacturing capabilities and the direct access that Merlyn provides to us and that we provide to Merlyn provides us the ability to be able to continue to kind of tackle whatever comes at us. I mean, specifically to Merlyn, the generative AI on the chatbot piece that we talked about earlier, that's the part that's just going to continue to get better and better, right? And then that partnership that we have allows some of the voice control stuff that we talked about to really untether a teacher not only from their classroom computer, but also from their panel and display to a degree.
Yeah.
That stuff is only going to get better as well. And then, kind of taking into account the unknown, we're going to cross that bridge when we get there. But we're well prepared from a company perspective, Newline that is, and Merlyn as well, to be able to tackle those things because of that tight partnership.
I think that's key. I mean,
absolutely.
That's the key is they don't want something that becomes obsolete too quickly in the classroom, right? 100%. That's the hard part with budget constraints and everything else. And there are a lot of educators that are resistant to change, and they go from one interactive display to another. So they get comfortable with Newline, and the tools are intuitive. And even if they have to upgrade to a newer Newline version for whatever reason may be, great. But at least it's seamless in that it is future-proofed, and it's just a couple different touch points, like you said, versus, I got to learn a whole new whiteboard system or whatnot,
Well, and I think what's really telling to that, and it's a great point, if you look at Newline and you can go back 3 generations of product with us, it's that same whiteboard. We continue to update that whiteboard for our legacy product. We're not a company that is going to kind of sunset stuff and forget about it.
Right.
As long as our product has the hardware capacity to accept the software updates that we provide, we're going to go ahead and backfill that through our catalog to not leave our customers behind.
Oh, then school districts love that.
And school districts love that, but I mean, I'd love to hear that that you're not sunsetting older models as newer stuff comes out. I mean, that's such an important thing for any consumer that's buying things. I mean, I love it when it's kind of side note, but I bought a new watch, and it's for running or whatever, but the company that I bought it gives me firmware updates all the time, constantly giving me new features on my initial investment. The last company I had, anytime there was a firmware update, you had to buy a new watch. Yeah. There's another $400 or $500. So seeing that that Newline vision of really making a difference for the user in the classroom is nice to hear.
Yeah, and we're excited about Android 13 and that Google EDLA certification, because that now gives us the ability to step up that Android as well, right? So you'll see an Android 15 on the Q Pro at some point, and that partnership with Google and that certification process gives us the ability to do that. So we're very excited.
I'm excited. I'm leaving excited. If you do want more information on the Newline Interactive boards, we can post Jason's information. You can also reach out to the Bloom rep because they have a good relationship there. We'll get you Joe's info as well. It's bloom.com. Any final thoughts, Jason, Dan?
Anything you'd like to add?
Well, listen, Dan, Andrew, I appreciate you guys having us on here. We're having a fun NYSCATE. Looking forward to the next couple of days, and excited to see what happens in education over the coming years.
Same here. He said it best. I cannot do anything. Once again, thank you for listening on the platforms. If you have any questions, as always, we'll be back soon. Tech hard, work smart, live an adventure.
Find Andrew on all socials at @ANicola Tech and Dan at WCSD Tech DR.